Hi everyone and welcome to the Leaning into the Network series. This series is brought to you by FII and Orikalankini. My name is Japleen Pasricha and I'm the founder and director of Feminism in India, an award-winning digital feminist media platform. Orikalankini is an organization that is changing narratives on sexuality and menstruation through art, theater, and culture. Today, we have Neeraj Kumar as our guest speaker. Welcome, Neeraj.
I
Neeraj is a clinical psychologist, queer affirmative counseling practitioner, and social worker. They are also the founder of the Unsound Project, a user led platform for mental health engagement from intersectional, feminist, and psychosocial perspective. Neeraj, please tell us more about the work that you do, and especially with the Unsound Project. And I also hear Unsound has a mental health fellowship. So our audience would like to know more about your work with queer affirmative counseling, the Unsound Project, and how they can be involved, if that's a possibility.
yeah, okay. Hi guys, everyone. Uh, so with this specifically, so I'm Neeraj first of all, and my training, what Japleen told, is in the areas of psychology, social work, public health, and my work has been majorly around human rights, SRHR, sexuality, and queerness, and now it's a lot on disabilities. Specifically with relation to the Unsound project, so it's like 2 years old now that I think now we can say just 2 years old maybe. So Unsound is looking at mental health from merely a user perspective, so it's only a place for the users of mental health services, so that is very subjective. Let's say even if you're a professional, or if you are a psychiatrist or anything, anybody, even with your professional identity. But the first identity we look at is the user of mental health services, because we believe everybody is a user of mental health services in the contemporary times. And also, the another way to define user is anybody who is within the marginalized identity criteria. So I think that also I'll speak in the session so that it gets more clear that what I mean by that. So we look at mental health from intersectional, feminist, and psychosocial perspective, and so that's how it is. And we do public engagements. We don't do online engagements a lot. We prefer to do a lot of offline engagements, but we have not been able to do a lot of work because of the lockdown. Uh, we run a fellowship. So this fellowship has been this first cohort, and it has been quite a successful journey. We have more than 12, we have 12 fellows, those who also belong to the community of users and marginalized identities. They have their own projects at the time. They have got training on multidisciplinary approach towards mental health, from law, caste, gender, feminism, campaigning. So that's what the fellowship is. So it's also about enhancing the capacity of users to lead their own initiative. And so that's the one part of the fellowship. And the second, Unsound keeps on doing more meetups, and just to engage and more with the community. We also do like some sessions with the university students. We also connect them to a formative health services provider. So that's one part of it. And yeah, most of us are also somewhere connected to a lot of other movements and advocacy group, and we represent there. So also, just to reply to Japleen, that how can people join us, I think just shoot us an email. Yeah, we'll figure out some ways to just get you on board. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Neeraj, for that lovely introduction. And people who are listening in, please do check out the Unsound Project on Instagram. And as Neeraj said, you can reach out to them anytime. And now we will start with the presentation, which today's topic is mental health for the marginalized. Neeraj, over to you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Japleen. So I don't have as such presentation. I think I'll be speaking more in the session, but do I have a write-up? So I think that I'm gonna keep looking at. So do not get distracted if you feel that I'm getting distracted in between. I think I'll be just probably reading my own notes. So one is that I'll bring up my own self in the entire process, because that's one of the major part of my work has been, and also how I am looking at the overall discourse of mental health. So one is that, and as Chaplin has also mentioned, I am like been practicing as a queer affirmative counseling practitioner. I'm associated with a lot of groups, and it's been like more than three years that I've been practicing also. But I feel that I'm 26 right now, so I also have 26 years of experiences of living with my own self and dealing with a lot of issues. So I'll try to bring both the perspective, what it means to be marginalized identity vis-a-vis also as a professional in this current contemporary time. So yeah. uh, so I think just to start the conversation on mental health, a very uh, clear idea that I want to just start with, a very simple idea, is that I'm dominatingly going to speak about the Indian scenario and the contemporary times, and I'll also going to bring a lot of like historical facts that where are we today. Uh, it's not. I'm not claiming that this is all inclusive and it is the complete. I'm sure there'll be like a lot of things I may or may not be able to touch upon. So please, that's also going to be limitation of me and my understanding at the contemporary times. So one is that. Second, I am going to talk a lot from the caste, queer, disability, and feminist framework, and also try to see how the discourse have gone further within the marginalized identity and in the movement. Okay, so first, I think when we talk about mental health, I think you just need to understand the mental health is everything. Like food is mental health at the same at the contemporary time during the lockdown. Food has become, the basic rights have become, mental health concerns. So we just cannot locate mental health only in a specific situations, in the very conventional ideas of counseling one-to-one sessions, or medicine or other approaches that we have followed in conventional psychiatry or otherwise settings in a very medical discourse. So one is that. Second, to understand mental health, I think one can't just do it without understanding the political scenario of the economy, that we all are somewhere, living and surviving in this very cis Brahminical, ableist patriarchal setup, and the economy is also constructed on the same areas. Uh, uh, and I think I'll come to it, that what structures I'm also specifically talking about, that what cis means. So cis means that, if you identify with the same gender that you're assigned at the birth, so that's one part of it. And I think gender is going to be my major lens in this conversation. So I think human beings are like categorically like very, like the major things that we see like very regular difference is the gender, like men, women. But then the entire differencing between the genders have also, marginalized like others, those who are not men or women, or those who fall, otherwise. So that's the one part of it. But within this gender framework, how women have, women's lives have shaped, and what all things have happened, so that becomes a critical and, very interesting inquiry. Because in Indian mental health system, in Indian mental health discourse, the most critical, initiation of psychiatry and mental health discourse have been with the women's movement. So it is like psychiatry has been looked at very critically by the women's movement. So just to establish the fact that, it started with very intensive engagement with the women's movement. Yeah. So to just say this part, and so we all are surviving in this as Brahminical, ableist patriarchal setup. So now the same structure, this entire economy is supported by, when we go to education, the kind of education we are accessing it, our curriculum is shaped in that way that, we end up supporting the economy. Our households are constructed in this way that we go towards the same sort of, economical setup. Then of course your economy, livelihood, marriages, geographical areas are that set up this way that you will see, how Dalit Bahujan Bastis are on the separate, uh, in a locality which in itself also puts them in a lot of like danger situation and hazardous health. So one is that's also like we are geographically also constructed in this way that it can harm your mental health. And the very important is another super important discourse becomes that how knowledge has been constructed over this period of a time, that how it has become so intangible to the marginalized identities, and how it has further marginalized and keeps on marginalizing people. Okay, so this is the overall setup that I just wanted to say. Like we are functioning in the cis Brahminical, ableist patriarchal world. So let's just establish this thing. That's my major discourse is going to be around this area only. See, now, when we are talking about mental health, we need to go really, really back that how mental health discourse started in India, and who brought it up, why we needed mental health. You have like really amazing, French, German, a lot of other global, theories, those who you can read, and like Foucault or otherwise people, those who are going to talk a lot on the historical context and how madness and mental illnesses started, and there's like immense discourse on it. But in Indian context, the pre-independence era becomes like really, really important to look at it very carefully, that what was happening in those times, that what really went, and how it started. So first of all, just to establish that even before the entire medical, allopathic, what we understand as the today allopathic, the psychiatry discourse entered India, there was already like a lot of indigenous practices that we had it. So we had Ayurveda talking about, we had a lot of other texts talking about. So just to establish this clear idea that we had a lot of Indian ideas of mental health, mental illnesses that were there. There were a lot of Muslim physicians, healers, those were present during those times. They were very much also further influenced by magical, religious practices. So this was all happening. But during the colonial time, as usually what happened during those time is that they brought a lot of asylums, in India also. Asylums is basically a term which is in today's context we use as like mental health hospitals. So asylums, they have their own history, that how problematic they were. And so we'll not go much more into it, but yeah, just to touch upon it. So asylums, when they entered, and they were very European in terms of their infrastructure. uh, there was clear division between Europeans. So there were like two kind of asylums during those times, so European and Indians. And then Indian inmates have very not like so good standards of health practices amongst, like by their treatment was not really well given as compared to European soldiers, those who were getting treated here. And it is also documented that how there was like more depressed classes during those times, what we today understand as the Bahujan communities, or scheduled caste that we call it. uh, so they were like extremely poor people and depressed. It's very interesting line that one of the authors, those who are like a psychiatrist and historian, those who mark the fact that they say that colonials, like Britishers, were very scared away because asylums were very overwhelmed. Like there were a lot of people, there were a lot of poor people, and there were a lot of depressed class people, and they were scared that why people are coming. Are they sick, or are they just coming because they're poor and there's food and there is facilities otherwise. So this was a very interesting mark that I felt, that it came that they were figuring it out that it's a survival strategy for the poor and the Dalit Bahujan. So that is it. And in the after independence, then you see like there is a like lot of gap has increased. So there's increase in a gap in terms of overall health accesses, and how people are not able to access the health. And that will come to it now. uh, but when the party, and when the independence happened, and like the major really important thing that happened on during those times, the landmark things was the partition. And the partition has a very very serious sort of it had implication on the mad person during those time of it, because even when everything was divided amongst those two new countries, madly ill people were left. And it took them, like, it was like more than a 3 years when that this entire division of happened, that who which mentally ill person will go. And like Indians were Indian mentally ill from Lahore people were like given to in India, and from India the Muslims ill patients were sent back to it. So like, just to make it a very very strong point, that how mental illness and mentally ill were located during those times that like there was like literally lack of care and concern. Like it took 3 years for for their transfer. And later on during the development for the program further, it again we had like like there's this interesting thing that in Delhi it took at least like 6 decades to construct a new mental health hospitals to sort of accommodate mentally ill, because otherwise they were precisely in jails. Before that they were inmates in the jails. uh, so this is sort of like a historical context, and it's also documented, like it's like the colonials or other people that have also saw that how mental health institutions, they were like a lot of sexual abuse were happening towards the mentally ill women. So this has already been documented, that how asylums have been really really terrifying for women specifically. Now, now this is the sort of like the historical context, and then further, I just want to jump to the 90s, 1990s, and then because that there was this another lot of thing happened during this period of a time between that. They were like a lot of modernization was happening. Uh, New drugs came into the power. A lot of Indian theorists, psychoanalysts, or analysts, and a lot of other people also try to look at psychiatry, psychotherapy, psychology in an Indian context, that how it looks like. They produced really amazing work. They brought up the cultural practices and try to minimize that whether we can call them illnesses or disease or not, or how they're going to look at it within the psychiatry framework, which was very westernized. So another established part of it, that uh, the mental health, colonials brought it up, and it still today remains as a very westernized concept. There's a lot of methodological problems that a lot of intellectuals sort of points out towards the how a lot of mental illnesses are structured. So that has been there even in Indian context, where a lot of cultural practices and other intersectional identities have brought it up by intellectuals. And during 90s we see a very this another sort of a movement, because now women movements have come up. There is neoliberal politics have emerged. Like a lot of international global markets are going to start feeding into India, and like for foreign borders are open to a lot of people now in terms of investments. And they brought up again new drugs with them, which we call them as psychiatric drugs, or psychopharmacology, sort of the term that we use probably to uh, the drugs that psychiatrists prescribe to the patient in the need. So and during this time when the women's movement emerged, so for a initially women's movement, like they were like precisely concerned a lot with women's issues around reproductive health, violence. So this was the major discourse across that time, before 90s, I think. Yeah, I think before 90s, one can sort of like figure it out that they were like 1950. Yeah. So I think before 1950s, actually, we see that, how lot of, like, educated and employed middle class women were subjected to a lot of sociological researches and not in psychologies. And it took like 2 decades to sort of like brought up, women's issues in the other mental health issues. And it started with a lot of, people, those who had lived experiences, those who were also very critical, exposed to a lot of feminist theories. And then they started, looking at that, what was happening to women and psychiatry. They brought it up a lot of severe issues about, excessive uh, misrepresentation, a lot of stereotypes within the psychiatry, within the psychologist community, that how they were not really well treated amongst this entire medical discourse. They brought up the serious concerns that, how women's life were more and more distress, irrespective of, any other condition, and how this entire double burden, triple burden of, like distress used to put them in the vulnerable side. So this kind of, inquiry sort of started emerging. And there was a very, very interesting research which happened, very, like very old. It's like uh, 1970s. You see it. It's a global research which talks about that how sex related stereotypes are, prevalent among the medical clinician. And it sort of made the finding made a very clear remark that clinicians bring themselves a lot for their idea of adult is equal to a man. So the woman automatically becomes a secondary person, and the ultimate idea is to achieve this adult neutral person that we always claim that this is the neutral person. And so the gap always remains between the woman and this adult person, because this adult is automatically understood as a man. And then there was a clear failure within the medical discourse to not acknowledge the woman's distress and stress related to their life. That shows the patriarchal, discourse and the knowledge production, that how it happened. And then automatically this entire discourse became more oppressed. They oppressed further the women and, other minorities that we see it further. So it is actually we the fourth survey that we have documented by ICSSR, which was the first to ever, include gender in a psychology research. So like on a very huge scale. So this with the women's movement happened. And then there was like a lot of boom, like, there were a lot of like lived experiences, plus professionals from legal, other legal women's movement, that they, you know, literally, just looked at discourses very critically. And they found it that how reproductive health and, events were so patriarchally, connected to the mental illnesses discourses. How, there was this entire idea that, like child this so there was this one theory that I remember, is that menopause theory, that how women feel less attractive, and, that how it puts them onto sort of mental, health, distress, and all of this thing, which was like again a very patriarchal notion, that how woman is seen and is objected and objectified. Whereas the feminist accepted that, like it was not post menopause that it was happening. This is not like make sense to us, and it's not that like after that the life is just right. Whereas the childbirth has been documented more as a depressive episodes among women, intimate partner violence, poverty, having a female child. This was the, issues that a lot of texts brought it up, that, these are our problem, because there's a lot of within the young woman's life. They documented that how, the marriage was a big problem. Women, those who were earning, also told very interesting side, that how they couldn't make this decisions on their work schedules, which was the men was allowed. So men was allowed to make work schedule easily, for an example, that how, usually we say that, like women have to do like all the work in the household. So, and they couldn't just basically say to the work and make changes as per their need, whereas the men was allowed to do make work changes, because both the situations, even the employer was also not very good towards the woman employer, because there was also this movement which was women were making places in the livelihood options. So yeah, this happened. But to be very noteworthy here, this was not the case with the Dalit Bahujan woman. So I'll come to it later, that this discourse precisely remains limited to the upper caste or Savarna women, that we can say it at the moment. Yeah. um, and another very important intervention by the women's movement was around the issues of legal discourses, and also to sort of like fight for a lot of severe regulation, because there was this cases how in Hindu Marriage Act, like there's a provision of divorcing a spouse on the grounds of having mental illnesses, or if the so that or if the person is declared unsound, and if they can't fulfill the function a spousal responsibility functionally. And we see it because psychiatry is the one of those only domains in India which is directly in link with the law. So law, the psychiatrist or the psychiatry knowledge has the power to declare your soundness and unsoundness, which basically is in connection with your constitutional right. So psychiatry has that potential. And there was there's very there's this news channel, news portal called the Helka, which sort of reported that how there was false cases of how husbands, brother families were forcing, or got like a lot of psychiatrists otherwise to prove that the woman is insane. In this was specifically in the cases of dissenting women, where women were sort of claiming their rights, or they were they did intercaste marriages, or probably they just did exercise their body and sexuality. So that became a very big movement for the women's movement. And before that there was a cases of a lot of other harassments of a woman living with disabilities. Yeah. So this was with a lot, and I also, like we still have new cases where the data shows that how violence within the asylums with women residents are still happening. So it's also like, it's like one doesn't know whether what has changed, and how the things are happening in those areas. So that has been there, and there are new studies also which clearly suggest that how uh, women are severely vulnerable to depression, anxiety, PTSD because of domestic violence and abuse. So to also problematize it, that it's not anything in isolation which happens in the woman's life. It's a lot to do with the gendering process and how the gender has positioned. That's what I was also pointing it out, that how this entire patriarchal setup works for it, just to put everything in the place to sort of fit into that overall economical sort of position. So that's just to say it. And within the disability movement, there has also been documented cases also that how women, young girls and women with psychosocial disability or otherwise disabilities were also not part of a lot of sex education programs. So that also sort of reduced their overall access to knowledge on the sex education, or like to even uh, negotiate about sex or sexuality. Yeah. So that's one part of the story has till now with the women's movement. And yeah. Okay. uh so just to sort of like quickly just go through this moment's moment, and conclude this point, was this that this remained a very single identity focus. So it was not it later on with the disability movement engagement, it did talk about the women with disability, and then they problematized the mental health concerns further of women with disabilities, and which is also very contemporary discourse. It's nothing it is very very contemporary. It's not that old. That how they problematize it, and like, so that is a very, that happened. But women's movement also, like, there were like a lot of other things that left behind it, and we couldn't it doesn't also give us like the clear picture of that how marginalized identities were shaping their mental health in this discourse. Yeah. uh, Later, so on this another part of it, I want to talk about the caste psychiatry and mental health, and what happened with the caste discourse, like what is happening, because caste discourse is another very important discourse in Indian context. And so they again, like, I think it is also historically we know it, that it has been documented that like how Dalit Bahujans and deprived, also like the term psychiatrist, psychiatrist, psychiatry literature uses deprived caste, lower caste. So there is also like various term. I'm going to use the term Dalit Bahujan in this current time. uh, it's clearly documented that how the multiple level of discrimination, stigma, and rejection, social change leads to really really poor mental health and conditions, or even physical health. So it's well documented that how initially, when with the SC/STs Reservation Act came into the picture, when Dalit Bahujans were accessing, Dalits were going into the educational institute, it was a very panicky time for upper caste, and then they really became hostile towards them. So it's quite documented, just to make a point here, that it was the case. And it also, untouchability was practiced there, and it had a very really negative impact on Dalit persons. Uh, and it was like a time for them also to reflect that what's happening. So they were like mixed feelings. Some of them didn't go for it, some went, some made sure that they will go and fight for their rights and etc. They went, it happened, and afterwards you see also like a lot of work and where concerns around depression, anxiety. Dalit students, specifically students, have also been shown that how there is internalized personal lag, there's deeply harsh self criticism, there's lack of self concept, severely hard to compare it to privileged caste, that what's happening in this entire dilemma. So there's a lot of confusion, anxiety, helplessness, anger, resilience, and uh, burnout. So this have been also very much part of Dalit lives also. And also I think it is also like, just to make sure that it has also been with the women's burden, women's lives as well. So just to also highlight that part of it. But on another part, what was happening with Dalit communities during this time of it, what's documented is that also that they did not have parental, they did not have like a lot of parental support, because they, day to day was in a sort of like a situation that how they will eat, because there was not like regular livelihood. There was like a problem of a land, they used to go and farm somewhere else. So all the historical marginalization was sort of coming, had a really huge role to play. So also like how poverty and Dalit and deprived caste has been connected also, because poor have most of the poor are easily said it that they're Dalit, and which is of course one is the true part. And how within this poverty lens, when there is day to day food and basic problems, then it is also clear that how the child develops certain disabilities related to cognition, or problem in expressing, because there's cases of malnutrition and intellectual growth. So there's problem with that, so disabilities are also emerged. So one is yeah, so that's one. mm. Okay. Also there is so one thing also, I think I want to make a point is that I think we are living in this times where it's not an age of ignorance. Like, we there is a lot of data available, there's a lot of theory available at the current times, that it's proven that how social identities emerge, and what they do to community. So in one of the caste identity model, it is documented that how upper caste usually to feel belong to their own community, they discriminate, and that's one of the major focus to feel belong to your own community. So that has been documented, and there are theories on it. And whereas other theorists, other data, they also say that how there's collective violence towards the Dalit Bahujan community. So it's also just not about single one person coming and harassing somebody, but there's also collective violence. There is clear separation of mobility, that which also threatens the psyche of somebody, that where you can go, where you can't go. Okay. uh, so I don't want to repeat that how most of the marginalization also puts them into depression, loss of self isolation and everything, because I think they some of us are also just bringing the point that what depression is, because then depression does not become uh, illness here, or resilience is not something that you can teach us, because resilience and depression or burnout are part of our lives, everyday part of our life. That has been very strongly argued within the feminist movement also. So just to hold on to this thought also, that how depression is looks within the marginalized identities. Yeah. uh, so with the Dalit Bahujans, this has also been documented that there are researches which says that how Dalit women they have a poor overall quality of social life because of the stigma that they face other overall in their lives, and which leads to psychosocial disability also. So it's also internalized stigma vis-a-vis and this internalized stigma is actually the production of the outside severe stigma that they face, because Dalit women are like you I don't know if I can say triple how many times that we can just say that they're more and more vulnerable towards the lot of violence, because they are just not only doing the regular household work that once a Varna or upper caste woman will be subjected to, but they are also, because of the poverty and otherwise, they have to go, they have to work. So which has been the condition for many of the later Bahujans women, and they are also subjected to a lot of sexual violence by the upper caste men. So this again in a very Vishaka guidelines, like a lot of things which we have today is also based on like a lot of like those stories where we have seen severe violence and how things have gone wrong. So to and it has again this it stigmatizes it, it does not really do good anything to mental health, and it keeps on marginalizing it. So to make this one critical point here, I think is also that how we need to stop also locating resilience and depression here. Like we need to look at beyond now. This resilience and depression discourse is also in itself is a very savarna sort of a problem that of course one is that, but and I'm also not just going to reduce it to the fact that I'm feeling excessive sadness or anything, but I'm just saying this have been part of most of our lives. So just to establish it, later on I want to comment on it that what clinical depression is and what depression is not, because I think that also will horizon our lens that what psychiatry has been selling us for long time. So this has been with the caste discourses. It is well documented with this how stigmatized identities, internalized negative self-image, devalued and dehumanized social identity, poor self-esteem collectively and also individually, that the overall stigma that they face. So this has been documented. Very interestingly, the women's movement and the feminist discourse has been the most interesting here, because Dalit women have clearly came up with the power, and they have just said it that what you have, the way you have represented it, it has been not really well, and I think they further come up, because also the knowledge production itself has been this way that the women have felt marginalized it, because they have been represented sexually more available to the upper caste, and a very wrong terminologies have been used, and how Dalit men's masculinities have been cautioned, which is one has to understand understand this is all a very Brahminical idea of, controlling women and, women's sexuality. So locate, one has to keep on looking into this positionality, that how this structural violence keeps on happening to the marginalized. Now, the third and the very important part is the queer movement here. So even women, Dalit and Dalit mental health also is, is very clearly divided. That there is clear idea of that, how women go through it, and what is the concerns of the Dalit students accessing the educational spaces, and then you have overall theorization of, the identity and violence for sure. Third is the queer LGBTQI has been the most troublesome, I think, visibly and with the historical context, that how psychiatry has troubled them. Like, of course, I'm just saying them also. I would just say like me also, in a way that it has been the most troubling and the nightmare of all the time, because homosexuality has been considered as an illness, and it's also not very latest. Like, I don't know when you're going to watch this video, but the day we shooted, like 2-3 days back, we had, suicides, deaths due to suicides of, bisexual, queer women, and it is really sad. And this was due to conversion therapy, which is also banned, and it's like, there is immense data which shows that there are global statements which have released, that how this conversion therapies are hostile towards, LGBTI community. This entire idea of, conversion in itself is a medical, abuse towards the LGBTQI community. So that is there. Like, it's also very latest, like it's just yesterday, where you have like a lot of official statements getting released by Indian Psychological Association of Clinical Psychologists. So, and it's really sad that it has happened, and where they believe that, one can become from gay to straight, and and in this entire discourse, one has to really understand that, what this conversion therapy was doing here. They precisely want to make you straight, right? Which is a very wrong, claim, because if you will do very, in-depth reading of it, they basically, get you to have, straight sex. So they are not changing your orientation. Ultimately, they make you as a, like, they just make you to have heterosexual sex, and get a life of a, you know have kids. So there is no ideal also, reading very critically, one will know that, it was never about, changing orientation. It was just only about, adjusting homosexual behavior towards the heterosexual relationship. Again, to, this entire economical structure that I was saying of, serving it to this heteropatriarchal domain of it, to make sure that the women are also subjected to violence, and we keep this circle keeps on happening. Yeah, transgenderism has been also, removed from ICD. Homosexuality has also been removed from, ICD, but still we see like a lot of cases of, hostile environment of psychiatrists. LBT persons have reported very, bad experiences when they have been accessing, psychiatry. Couple in my practice, I know that, how things have gone wrong, how psychiatrists have attempted to, sexually assault their clients. Uh, LBT women have been more subjected to, violence in terms of, because it's within the household. As a woman, your mobility is already controlled, and then once you come out, and because sexuality is such a severely, private discourse in India, that being sexually, first of all, even marrying a heterosexual, let's say, like, even if you're a woman and if you want to marry a, guy of your same choice, or intercaste, it becomes a massive problem. But when it's also a same sex, it becomes another level of a problem. I'm not like doing that what is more, what is less, but on the same domain, that this sort of keeps on problematizing, this entire attitude. uh, there are there is like clear documentation of, rapes, conversion, like corrective rapes, the term that you use to, cure lesbians, bisexual women to by brothers, by relatives, by fathers. So and the same thing has also been documented in the cases of gay bisexual, where uh, there has been the force to have sex with a mother, or to basically get attracted to a woman. So one is that. So this has been the gay lesbians sort of identity problems with it. But with the trans population, it has been another level of hostile, because trans persons have been our like the in the within the queer activism, they have been the face of the movement. They are not somebody those who can pass also, they don't want to pass also. That's the they have lived their life out there. And how within the queer movement they have also further marginalized. We see every day cases of how they are discriminated. Like there are like taglines of like no trans, no CC and etc, which further marginalize them. Whereas and the new legal discourse is also problematizing their entire self identity expression. So and gender dysphorias and anxiety, suicidal ideations. These are depression again. These are like very common things that we see when we talk about marginalized identities. That keeps on coming up all the time. And this has been the same case with the queer community also. The more addition which you can say is also is the fact is that they are not giving given houses specifically to people those who like there's a sort of like ideal like trans persons are not given housing. There's a problem with the housing, or so this happens. There's a lot of violence within the overall part of a life, workplace, school, school, or like even practicing religion. This is a major problem becomes for a lot of LGBTQI persons. uh, Again, and just to emphasize that we have a history, we have temples, that those who are, there's a lot of mythology work which I've already documented. So it was very colonial idea to sort of like just whitewash most of the discourse. Okay, so I think I've read it my document. Now I'll just sort of try to connect the most of the dots that what I just wanted to say. Hmm. uh, so and then the some of the things that I've not spoken about also is the violence, and the stigma and the overall marginalization one face because of the region that one is in, specifically Northeast Kashmir. And that which I think which the so-called they call us mainland, and which is I think we really need to start saying sorry that how it is really wrong. And like uh, uh, and like one can just only apologize that it has happened. And how the discourses have not taken it further even within our community, that a lot of unique stresses of what Northeast or Kashmir would have related to the specific armed forces, or of power, other cases which have been completely silenced. We do not even get to know what's happening. So also to just imagine that what's happening and how troublesome it is. So even connecting it to what I've just said, it like even if we really wish to understand and build empathy, that it has been really troublesome. There are stories that we hear, there are documents that we have clearly seen. There's really increasing a lot of cases of PTSD, which is a post-traumatic uh, stress disorder. And so this is, and one has to just keep on saying that if you're in a situation of a distress, if there's somebody putting a gun at your head, and your everyday life is at a risk, and you can't, your mobility is reduced, your people are entering into your houses, and a lot of violence is happening. PTSD, depression, anxiety, panic, sadness, helplessness is the response that you will have. So I think to a lot of my colleagues, those who are in clinical psychologists, I also just want to bring them up with this discourse, that can we really look at it just in the conversation of that this person is fulfilling our symptoms, and then we just what do we do? Or like, or do we also want to just make it a more political conversation, and just not build resilience anymore, because this person is already resilient. So one has to understand the marginalized communities are already resilient. In the contemporary time, what has happened with NRC also is another level of a marginalization. We see it that uh, the new margins are coming up. Even there were margins before also, but how the religion becomes also one of the another player to set up this entire community and discourse. So okay, so I think I'll sort of like try to summarize in this part of it that what happens now when you are living with so many marginalized identities. Most of the discourses have also been very single identity focused, but when you see it intersectionality, it just makes it more worse. It makes it more really bad for the person to just keep on dealing with a lot of stressors and figuring it out that what's happening in their life. Now one is the resilience is already built and the person is already prone to a lot of severe mental illnesses that we understand in the psychiatry discourse. So like sort of let's just imagine this is the spectrum. There is a distress, there is an illness. Distress is a part of our life. We have every day distress or stress related to waking up early. We like, let's say Japlin has this session today, so Japlin will be like, I have to wake up, I need to do this, will Neeraj come or not come, all of this. So the stress is every day part of our life, and in this spectrum, when the stress is more and more and more and more and more and more, then we keep going to the shift of this mental illnesses, what quote unquote is understood as mental illnesses. So now the history of psychiatry becomes really important. There is it is a very very severe gray area that what mental illness is in itself. So not to reduce it only to the person to the symptoms that what DSM or ICD says it, that this person shows sadness, this person is not able to wake up, get up from their bed, this person is not able to perform functionality and all of this thing. Or like there's a mania happening, or this person is a mad, or like lot of like this person is bipolar, this person is depressed, this person is suicidal. So one is that. Now mental illnesses discourses have been shaped in this way only, where the idea is to look at the symptoms and see it. There is a lot of critical readings have told of the user's body, specifically from MAD studies and other user bodies, which is say that I know also other relative experiences where psychiatrists or psychologists, like a lot of my colleagues and my own field, we there is this entire idea of just not understanding the situation of the person, but the idea is to be a good psychologist and be a good psychiatrist to make sure that we when the person goes and from the training the person has this label, or this person knows that what's happening. So one is again the another discourse comes up here that these terminologies have helped some and have not really helped some of the people. It has completely in a gray area whether it has had the marginalized identities or not, because there is also this discourse of it that if I have a clinical diagnosis, if I have been called bipolar, if I have been called schizophrenia, how easy or difficult it is for me to just not do it without it also. So this discourse of mental illnesses in psychiatry is also not very easy to just say let's just reject it or let's just accept it completely. There's a lot of gray area within it, that what happens it. Another point is also like many anthropologists or psychiatry anthropologists have clearly understood the medical training in India, that they have seen it that how there's a guru shishya parampara and medical discourses are very completely what senior has said it, the junior is supposed to just follow it. There's literally lack of debate and dissent, like that you just cannot expect in the medical discourse. I hope I'll be safe afterwards. So that's the, but that's well, that's documented, so like I am sure that's fine. Uh, so now whatever they are taught, you just like basically adapt and you just go to your trainings and etc. There are clear ideas, clear documentation where they say that they lack information on homosexuality. Feminist concepts, like doctors are not really well aware of it. FIICRIA, there are a lot of other people are still, talking, fighting for abortions and abortion rights. So that this discourse is happening. So this discourse is not independent or of mental health. This is all happening together in mental health. That's how the women's bodies have been subjected to the violence by medical discourses, which is also followed in mental health. That's the entire idea. And doctors, psychiatrists, they are also people of this this living in this cis patriarchal, ableist frameworks. They are not somebody who comes from, other planet, and they are going to just, be all, neutral, because neutrality does not help anybody. It does not at all. And so in this discourse, they bring their subjectivity. Let's say if I am casteist, I if I believe very strongly in the Varna system, I'll bring that part in me. If there is a possibility, if if I am homophobic, I'll bring that part in me. So my subjectivity also gets brought up in the clinical discourses with me, and which is subjected to the client's mental health. So this mental illnesses and diagnosis here becomes really problematic, because one is also just reading what they want to read it probably, and one is not reading what the client is saying. So that has been, like, said it by a lot of others, professional intellectuals, where we see around pharma suicides, or other suicides related to Dalit students committing suicides, and the terms include institutional murder and not just suicide, because it tells you that it's just more than suicide. It has been happening for long time, and the environments are hostile. Uh, so I think this is how what mental health is looking for the marginalized, and I think this is the reason that today we have lot of range of affirmative professionals coming out, and saying that I'm queer affirmative counselor. There are courses specifically available to be queer affirmative. We still don't have like really intensive courses, those who are talking about Dalit Bahujan's mental health, but we have evidence, we have data, we have anti-oppressive practices that one can use, and to practice it. And I think as professional, or as when we are looking at the marginalized identities and mental health, we always have to look at it or engage with the persons, those who are at the extreme end, to understand that what mental health looks like, rather than to look at it from top to bottom, and like to spotlight that uh, what is happening here. Because with the disabilities, with other part of it, that the discourse has always been to include them, which was, and I think what now is also happening, we are trying to be queer affirmative, whereas queer was my reality from the start. From For women, the women's bodies, women's issues have been their reality. So the entire idea to be inclusive is also has come up this ideal situation, which tells us that how the structurally violence happening towards us, that because I think we're going to keep on going to include more and more people. And there's okay, also, like, just to not miss upon it, also the new discourse on the intersex variation that have also emerged within the queer movement. So I think we just need to keep trying, and and I think that how their bodies have also subjected to violence. There's new movement coming up, and they're also showing us that within the queer movement, how they have also not talked about intensively. So yeah, I think there's 1 minute left, and I think I am done, Javi.
Thank you, Neeraj. Do you want a minute to drink water? You have been speaking
Yeah,
non-stop
yeah.
for an hour. It was such a wonderful session. I enjoyed it so much, and there were so many points that especially struck me when you talked about the history, and that is something that I was not aware of. The history of psychiatry and how it has always been, keeping people on the margins. And we all have heard of Freud, and we all have heard of his theories regarding penis envy, but beyond that, a layperson wouldn't know so much about the history of psychiatry. But I read this very interesting article, and on FI we have also made a video on the sexist history of hysteria, and how that was diagnosed to women as a mental health condition because of wandering womb, or hypersexuality. And it's just you see that sexism has reached each and every point of your life, and there is just no way where there is some kind of gender or class, caste bias. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. And when you mentioned how Jacqueline would be stressed about this today, I was like, yeah, that's how I started my morning. So before we close, do you have any last remarks, or if you want to give out your email address, or where people can reach you, please do so.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Last remark is just, guys, like, just be, love yourself, and do not underestimate self love. Let's find out some new ways to love ourselves and others also. You can reach out to me on Twitter also. It's called Sialkoti Neeraj. So Sialkot is basically a place in Pakistan that before partition my family belonged to. That's the Sialkoti Neeraj. So that's my Twitter handle, and also you can reach out to me. I don't know how we can give them email ID. Like, can we just write it down in the bio?
Yeah, we can do that.
So we'll just write it down in the bio. It's Neeraj_KMR@hotmail.com. Yeah. And yeah, just shoot me an email if you have. I'm sure if disagreements, agreement, happy to provide readings also of the session. Yeah.
Yes. And Neeraj is also a practicing psychologist. So if you want to book a session with him, that is also possible, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Though my slots are booked, Abhi, but yeah.
great.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacqueline.